What if I told you that foam rolling is actually more effective if it's painless? In today's video, I am going to give you the video version of our ultimate guide to effective foam rolling without torturing your legs. And I'll walk you through exactly how to foam roll painlessly, the results that we get with our clients, and why I believe that it is more effective than foam rolling the traditional way. Hi, I'm Catherine. I'm the founder and principal therapist of Leighton Sports Massage, a multi-award-winning sport and remedial massage therapy clinic in London, and we also do video sessions. In this channel, I like to share information about how your body works and simple, easy self-care tips so that you can enjoy your favorite activities and live your life as pain-free as possible. Before we dive into the details of how to foam roll painlessly and effectively, as with everything, if you have any medical conditions or injuries, please speak with a medical professional who can assess you visually and see you and talk to you and get the details of your case before trying any new exercise or self-care routine. If at any point any of this is painful, please stop until you can show someone and they can go over it with you, and really listen to your body. Like with everything, but especially with foam rolling, if something feels uncomfortable or weird, don't push your body. Listen to your body and maybe try it another time or try it with someone who can check what you're doing. So if you've ever Googled foam rolling, you've probably seen on YouTube videos of people rolling up and down on the side of their leg on a foam roller, pretending like it doesn't hurt like crazy, which we all know it does. And actually, people are catching on to the fact that maybe rolling a hard piece of foam up and down on your leg in a way that can create soreness and serious discomfort might not be the best thing for you. But actually, foam rolling can be a super effective tool to use along with like a full picture of stuff. When it comes to especially muscles that are difficult to stretch or muscles that sections need to be released, but not the whole muscle needs to be released. So before I get into explaining how to foam roll painlessly and why at the clinic we believe that it's more effective than the traditional foam rolling approach, I want to tell you a story about a client. And I did get permission to tell a story, even though you wouldn't be able to recognize him, even if you knew him. I had a client who, for the purposes of the story, I call Sam, and he's very active. He runs, he cycles, he swims, and he first started seeing me, unsurprisingly, for tight quads and IT bands, like we see with a lot of runners and cyclists. So I'm like, listen, Sam, go foam roll. Foam roll every couple of days, especially the quads and the IT bands, and I'll see you at your next session. Because he was seeing me for maintenance. He comes back a month later and his legs literally felt like blocks of wood. His muscles were worse than they were before I'd asked him to foam roll. And so I was like, what did you do to your leg? I thought we said that you would try foam rolling. And he said, I did. I've been foam rolling like every couple of days regularly ever since the last session. Because Sam is nothing if not good at managing his self-care, like sticking to his homework. And I asked him, did you look online and follow instruction online that told you to roll up and down really hard? And he said, yeah. And I said, did it hurt a lot? And he said, yeah. And I said, okay, well, let me show you the correct rate of foam roll and we'll try it again. And so this is what I told him on how to foam roll. And I'll tell you what happened because he followed the instructions and what happened at the end. So the first thing when you foam roll, and listen, please watch to the end of this video because at the end I'm going to talk about what you need to be doing in addition to foam rolling. Because if you have tight muscles and you foam roll, but you don't do this other thing, you could actually be setting yourself up for injury even if you're foam rolling correctly. So please do watch to the end of the video. So the first thing you do when you're foam rolling is foam roll with a medium to light pressure. So I tell people to do like a 3 to 4 out of 10 on the pain scale, with 10 being really painful and 1 being not painful at all. Now I'm going to repeat that because most people feel like foam rolling is supposed to be painful to be effective, and actually it's the opposite. And when I explain this to my clients, what I say is, I want you to imagine, if you've ever had a deep tissue massage, you can imagine this. Let's say that I take my elbow and I push up and down your quad, your muscle, really hard. What do you think your body's going to do? Is it going to relax and allow the pressure to release the muscles? Or is it going to fight with contracting and making itself hard? Now, the obvious answer is it contracts. Like if you've ever had a massage that's too deep, which is for another topic as well, you know that when somebody puts too much pressure, your muscles really contract and you really have to fight to relax your muscles. Whereas if it's not too deep, if it's in that nice in-between stage where it's not too much pressure and not too little pressure, your muscles open right up. So when you go onto a foam roller, you really need to have gentle pressure, just enough to instigate a change in the body and not so much that your body is going to be fighting it. And we find that when you're doing it with yourself, 3 to 4 out of 10 is the most effective way. How do you know if you have the right amount of pressure? The easiest way to test if you've got the right pressure, and this is the same for stretching, is, well, actually there's 2 ways. Number 1, check your body. So if you are holding your breath, if you can feel that your muscle is fighting the pressure, or if you're tensing somewhere else, so you might be like making a fist or curling your toes up or like clenching a muscle somewhere, that's usually a sign that it's too much pressure because your body is trying to fight against it or compensate for it. The other way is to count to 10. If you count to 10 and the feeling of pressure hasn't decreased, and you're fighting it, or you're kind of pushing against it, that's a sign that it's too much pressure. It's very rare that people are going to get too little pressure on this, so we usually assume that you're doing too much. Number 2 in the foam rolling guide, foam roll slowly. Oh, and just a side note, we do have this as a written post on our website, so I'll put this in the description below for the YouTube video, or you might be watching it on the website, so you see the text below. Foam roll slowly. So one of the big mistakes is people will go up and down and up and down and up and down. Now, the slower you move through the muscle, the more time it has to relax and accommodate what you're doing. So what I actually recommend is that you find one spot and hold it. And that brings us to number 3, which is foam roll for a minute or 2 in one place. So for example, if you're working on the outside of your leg, you might put your leg on the foam roller, adjust yourself so it's like a 3 or 4 out of 10, and find somewhere that's particularly sensitive, and then hold that there while you breathe into it. Because when you first move, your body's like, oh, what's happening? I need to like kind of be aware. I can't relax. And then when you don't move, the body can focus on responding to the pressure that you're applying and relax the muscle. Now you can foam roll for too long. So if it's super, super, super gentle, like a 1 or a 2 pressure, you could foam roll for like, you could rest your leg on it for 5, sometimes even 10 minutes. Like sometimes I'll do it while I'm watching TV for a few minutes, but that's with really, really light pressure. When it's harder pressure, you don't want to go over 3 or 4 minutes. And when it's really hard pressure, you probably, well, you shouldn't do it with really hard pressure because your body will just fight you and be more tense, which is what happened to Sam. Because he was foam rolling so hard and so fast, his body just fought it and his legs became tighter. Now, when you have limited time, because you might be thinking, I can't foam roll for 1 to 2 minutes on every single tight part in my legs, you want to choose the most tight parts. So one way you can do that is like, so let's say that my forearm is like your quad or your IT band. If you just push your fingers into the side of your leg, if you're doing your IT band, and do this, you will feel like right here for me is a little bit harder that's even harder. So you can feel the kind of hardest bits that have the most resistance, or maybe they're tender as well as resisting your pressure. And those are the places to focus on, because you'll get more benefit if you release the most tight part of your muscle than if you release the whole muscle evenly. Next, foam roll from the bottom up. So this is particularly for legs. You want to start at the ankle and come up towards the knee. You want to start at the knee and come up towards the hip. This is partly because of the way that our blood vessels work. So you're pushing stuff up, and it also helps your lymph system, because the lymphatic system doesn't have its own pump, and it's trying to pull things and help move metabolites and other waste up through the body. So pushing up towards the heart is going to help you out more. Number 5. When should you foam roll? Foam roll at the end of your day or right after you train. Now, I know a lot of people don't stretch and foam roll right after they do a training session. I honestly think that as long as you're doing it at some point, it doesn't necessarily need to be right after, as long as it's not right before. But if you don't do it after you train, do it in the evening. I actually think it's nice to do it in the evening, because then you're doing it even when you're not training, because it's not linked to your training. You just know that you do foam rolling, because we use our body when we're like in our day-to-day life. It's not just when you exercise that you're using your legs. A top tip that I have, if you're planning on making foam rolling or stretching part of your nightly routine, just focus on one muscle each night and do that really well, or one part of the muscle, and rotate through. You definitely do not need to be foam rolling every single day. You can also foam roll when you're watching TV. I personally really love this option because, you know, I will sit on the sofa or I sit on the floor and I put the foam roller under the outside of my leg or the back of my calf or my hamstring, or I kind of like lay on my side to do my the front diagonal of my quad and just chill out and watch TV for a little bit. Number 6, make sure you're using the right foam roller or the right tool. So just some tips for using the foam roller. You should be able to get it to a 3 or 4 out of 10 pain scale. If it's impossible, if it's too hard, because there's factors that come into play, right? So partly is how much you weigh, how much muscle mass you have, how hard the foam roller is, and what part of the body you're using it on. So depending on how much leverage you can get. So if it's really uncomfortable, if the foam roller feels really hard and painful, you can use like a terry cloth or a towel around it to soften it just a little bit. If it's not hard enough, like if you need more pressure, you can adjust your body over it, but it may be better to get a harder or a stiffer tool than having to really hoik yourself up over the foam roller to get the pressure that you need. You can use tennis balls or spiky massage balls, which we have at the clinic, I think, for self-massage for your calves. A foam roller is good for the outside of the leg, and you can get one of the ones that have spikes, the foam rollers, but I feel like the plain ones are just as good. It's just about what works for you. So when should you not foam roll? Number 7 in the guide is when not to roll. So number one, don't ever roll on a joint. You don't want to roll over a joint because that can put strain on the joint. Number 2, if you have an injury, if you have current inflammation, which is heat, redness, tenderness to the touch, and it feels spongy and soft, you do not want to roll over that. That tissue is trying to heal. Sometimes, if you're not stretching, you can roll above or below where there's injured tissue to help take the pressure off, but I do not recommend doing that unless you're under the supervision of a healthcare professional who knows your exact condition and situation, because it's something that is really easy to mess up and you do not want to create extra tissue damage with your foam roller. Also, don't foam roll every day. we don't recommend that you get a massage every day because you need a couple of days to respond to the work that we've done in a session. So when you foam roll, if you're doing a good job, you're releasing tension and your body will still be responding 1 to 2 days after you foam roll. So do not do something where you're foam rolling your quads every single night or you're foam rolling your IT band every single night, because that's just going to lead to overuse, overwork. So next I'm going to tell you what happened with Sam when he started foam rolling this way, and I'm going to give you one last tip about foam rolling. But before I do, I'm going to ask you to please like this video if you've enjoyed it, subscribe to the channel if you'd like to make sure that you don't miss when we release new videos about tips for runners, tips for desk workers, etc. And if you know anyone who would enjoy this video, please do let them know about it. Now, Sam, he went away, and after I'd given him this very detailed how to foam roll explanation during his session, he came back a month later, and I'm happy to report that his legs felt like butter. They were so much softer, much easier to work with, and actually it meant that I could focus on other areas that were harder for him to get to. And this is why we tell people how to do self-release and how to do stretches. In an ideal world, I would like people to be able to be completely pain-free and in ideal movement patterns for at least a month between appointments, sometimes longer. And so if I'm seeing somebody for once a month, I really want to focus on the stuff that they're not going to be able to release on their own. Some of the tricky muscles like the back diagonal of the calf, or sometimes the hip flexors can be difficult to do release on effectively. So if you can release your quads and your IT bands so that they feel soft and I can be focusing on other things, I think that's a great use of everyone's time. So Sam followed the instructions and his leg was much better. And actually a couple weeks ago, I had a client come in because I first wrote this post that I'm doing for video like years ago. I had somebody come in 2 weeks ago and said that they had been foam rolling the other way and they reviewed my guide, and actually their quads released much better than when they were doing the other way. So what's the last tip? The last tip with foam rolling is, if you have something that is chronically tighter than it's supposed to be, it's almost always compensating for something. It's almost always that something else in the system is not doing its job. When it comes to legs especially, when we're talking about neck and shoulders, it's often a postural issue that we need to adjust. If you continuously foam roll and release the tight muscle, but you don't address why the tension is being caused in the first place, eventually foam rolling will stop working, your body will stop responding to it, and it could potentially set you up for injury. So if you are foam rolling, please make sure you are also trying to figure out why you're having the issue in the first place. And it is true, like if you're running 50 miles a week, 100 miles a week, I don't know, I'm just making up numbers now. If you're running a lot, you're going to get muscle tension. That's true. There are some things that just create muscle tension, but the muscle tension that you're creating should be even. So if you're you're creating more muscle tension in one place more than somewhere else, it's probably because there's an imbalance somewhere. One more thing I'm going to add, even though I wasn't going to explain this, I think it's relevant. So you may have noticed that there are people now, whereas foam rolling was really, really popular for a while, there are people now who are saying, actually, it's damaging, it's not good for you, people should stop doing it. And I want to address that because I definitely am a proponent of foam rolling, but it's like a lot of other things. It's like passive stretching. It's like core exercises. You know, there's a right way to do something where it's beneficial, and there's a wrong way where it can actually do damage. And I think you've gotten from the video so far that if you're foam rolling in a way that's really painful, that's not loosening your muscles, that's making your muscles tighter. That could be damaging the muscles. If you're foam rolling as a substitute for making sure that you improve your mechanics, that's going to set you up for problems later. So it's not so much that foam rolling in and of itself is bad, It's more that if you're foam rolling and you're not addressing why, or you're doing it in such a way that is really damaging to your muscles, of course you're going to have problems. So that's the ultimate guide to foam rolling, the LSM clinics, ultimate guide to foam rolling. Let me know if you have any questions. If you try this approach, let me know in the comments and tell me how it goes for you. If you have any trouble, I mean, maybe one day I could do like a video on different positions for foam rolling. So sometimes people find it a little bit tricky. And obviously, like if you do and you would like someone to want advice, definitely you can have a video session with us online if you're not in London, or if you're in London, you can come see us in Angel or Waltham Forest, Walthamstow, Leighton. Hopefully we'll reopen there soon. Thank you so much for watching. I really enjoyed making this video. I hope you've enjoyed watching it, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.